1 month. That is how long children under the age of 5 have been able to get the COVID-19 vaccine. But are they actually getting it? The vaccination rates and why it's so important to start protecting our kids as we head into the fall. The Morning Medical Update starts right now. Good morning, everyone. It is Monday, July 18th. I'm Jessica Lovell, and we are live here inside the Dolph C. Simons Jr. Family Broadcast Studio. Thank you so much for joining us here this morning on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Well, it is something parents have been waiting for months. Children under 5 finally able to get their COVID-19 vaccines. We're going to check in with 2 kids back for their boosters just in time for school, and 1 getting vaccinated for the very first time this morning. Plus, Dr. Steve Stites, Chief Medical Officer here at the health system, will join us with the latest COVID-19 count. And pediatrician Dr. Ryan Smith is joining us along with clinical psychologist Dr. Danielle Johnson. They are our experts today. They are here with a medical checklist and how to prepare your kids to head back to the classroom. So send in your questions. We know you always have great questions and things on your mind, so we will get to those. Just send them in to YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and the Medical News Network. You can find links to those right there on your screen. It has been 1 month since the FDA approved COVID-19 vaccines for kids 6 months to 5 years old. And all people in the U.S. now basically have access to the shot. This has been great news. The latest numbers from the CDC finds that roughly 300,000 children between the ages of 6 months and 4 years have received at least 1 dose. But to put that into perspective for you, that's only about 1.5% of the roughly 19.5 million children in the U.S. who just became eligible. Parents are hesitant. We know that. Earlier this year, researchers with the Kaiser Family Foundation found only 18% of parents would get their child vaccinated as soon as possible. This data was recorded before the vaccine was available for this age group. 40% of parents said that they would wait and see before the vaccination of their child, while 27% said they would definitely not vaccinate their child against COVID-19. We turn now to pediatrician Dr. Ryan Smith and clinical psychologist Dr. Danielle Johnson. And we're joined behind you, Dr. Johnson, are your little cherubs sitting so sweetly behind us, waiting to get their shot. They are so excited this morning. We've got Isabella, who's 9, Ian is 7, and right there in the middle, little Sophia, she is 5. She's going to get her first shot today. Her 2 older siblings will be getting their booster, so we're really proud of them, and they're going to do really great. We know it. They're going to be super brave. So, Dr. Johnson, so just talk to me a little bit about the process of you deciding when and how to get your kids vaccinated.
Well, immediately, once it was announced that my kids could get vaccinated, we got them vaccinated pretty immediately. We know that kids tend to do much better with COVID, but don't want to take a chance on my kids being really sick from COVID or spreading it to other people that we care about. So when it was released, we got them their vaccinations back in the fall, and now they're here for a booster.
You must have been talking to them about
Yes.
it quite a bit,
Yes.
saying when this happens, it's going to happen.
Yes.
How do they take that news?
They understood. Were they super excited? No, they weren't that excited, but they understood the risks of having COVID, and so we wanted to make sure that we got them as safe as possible. They have all their other vaccines. They wear seat belts when they're in the car. They wear a helmet on their bicycle. So we do things to keep them safe, and this is another measure to keep them safe.
And to be clear, they did well after
They
getting
did
the shot?
well.
No weird reactions?
No weird reactions. And I typically, if it wasn't so early, I usually bring donuts when they get their vaccinations. And so I owe them a treat tonight because I typically bring donuts with me to the vaccination spot. They get their vaccines, and then they get a donut. So I owe you guys donuts.
You hold her to it.
Yes,
Absolutely.
they will.
Okay. So just for folks, so we know parents, we just heard the numbers. Parents are hesitant for different types of reasons, but you went ahead and did it immediately. Just for folks who are unsure, what made you so confident about getting your kids vaccinated?
Well, I myself have been vaccinated since December of 2000 and what year was that? Did we get vaccinated? 2020?
21?
21?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was.
Seems so long ago,
Yeah, it
doesn't
does. You lose track of time since COVID has hit. But I got myself vaccinated early on in December and just knew for my children I wanted to get them vaccinated. And I've talked to other friends who have children who were a bit concerned about it. And, one of the big questions, I don't know what's in it. And I said, I have faith in the scientists that produced the vaccine, and I want my kids to be safe. It's kind of one of those questions when we go to McDonald's. Do we know what's in McDonald's?
We do.
Not wholly. So this is a known measure to keep our kids safe. And again, I want to do whatever it takes to keep my kids safe.
And I ask you that question because I think it's always comforting to hear from another parent if you're sitting at home and questioning whether, as we start getting closer to school and taking your kids back for their back to school vaccines, if this is something that you're ready to do. So thank you for that encouragement. Dr. Smith, let's just talk a little bit. We know, we hear about it. A lot of comments come in from our viewers about, we know that adults have been the hardest hit during this pandemic, but compare that to kids. Tell us what we saw throughout the pandemic and why opening it up now to this group is going to make a big difference.
Yeah, and I think it's important to realize that with Omicron, we've been starting to see more severe disease within children. And I will say just within the last few weeks, the ICUs at Children's Mercy have been nearly full of patients, and a large number of those patients were receiving ICU care for COVID-19 disease. So it is very apt that we now have the vaccine opportunities for younger children, especially as we've seen some number of more ill children as Omicron and other variants have come around.
Where do you think that misconception happened, that children just don't get that sick from it?
Yeah, I think it's a matter of relativity and how relativity and risk is kind of interpreted in the broader population. Because again, this is not just like the flu. This is not just like other cold viruses. It is a very serious virus for children or adults, and has been throughout the entirety of the pandemic. But because it's been less, there's been fewer complications in adults, at least historically. That has kind of led to this absolute statement it's not dangerous in children.
Well, and you say historically as if it's been a really long time. We are getting
it feels like a long time.
It does, but we're getting new information all the time. Still to this date, it was coming in so fast over those first 6 months to 12 months. But again, you say the word historically, and you're right. It does feel like a long history, but it certainly is not. All right, we are going to get these shots started. Just giving you guys get loosened up over there and get ready for us, okay? We know, again, you're going to be brave. You guys are going to have to sit there for about 15 minutes afterwards. I want to bring in our 2 pediatric nurses today. Addison Berry, she's going to get those shots started for us. So let's, and Bailey Thomas is there standing by to help as well. So ladies, I'm going to let you do your work. Okay, guys. Isabella's getting her booster, right, Mom?
Yep, she's getting her booster today.
And what was your conversation like with her yesterday? That we're doing this today
Yeah.
on television.
On television. She's known for a couple of weeks that this was going to be a thing that we're going to do, and she said, no problem. She's turn her head, give her a shot, and she's good to go. So we've been having conversations about this is just like every other vaccine. We've had 2 COVID shots right now, so this is just the 3rd one, and it will be swell, right?
Ready to go?
Getting protected for back to school.
All right, Isabella, give me thumbs up about how, are you this, are you that? My kid always does this. He goes thumbs up when he's really happy about something, but then kind of goes in the middle and then goes down if he's not happy. Give me a thumbs up meter.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, just almost excited, but not quite. I think that's fair.
We're going to wait. Okay. You have to pick one or that one.
And I want to ask our nurses about why we want to sit them there for 15 minutes. What are you looking for? Let's remind them.
Just like general first side effects. So just kind of, I've seen like feeling under the weather. Sometimes it's a lot of the anxiety leading up to the vaccine that kind of causes the first initial side effects. So mainly, I'll just recommend let's take some deep breaths. We can give them water and relax. But sometimes people can feel nauseous since we have medications for that if so. But just to kind of make sure everything's feeling okay. And
Dr. Smith, so just tell us, when kiddos come in, what are you looking for? What might be a sign that this is why this 15-minute window really matters?
Yeah, so we're looking for severe allergic reactions, which are extremely rare, but especially with the relative newness of the COVID vaccine, exercising an abundance of caution makes a lot of sense. So,
is it because it's new that the 15 minutes is there, or we don't do that with flu shots.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we do it with certain high-risk patients that have a history of allergy. We will wait 15 or 30 minutes after the administration of vaccines. I think we are more universally recommending it because it is a relatively new vaccine, and we are collecting broad data on the risk of severe allergic reactions. But at least the data that I've reviewed up until now is that just like they are for other vaccines, severe allergic reactions for against the COVID vaccine are extremely rare. And so when we do see severe allergic reactions, we see swelling, we can see trouble breathing, we see tightness in the throat, those types of things.
But nothing that parents should be alarmed by. That shouldn't keep them from coming to get the shot, correct?
Absolutely not. You're talking about 1 in tens, if not hundreds of thousands of doses for the risk of these severe allergic reactions. And again, in a controlled medical environment, when you do have a severe allergic reaction, there is the ability to address it appropriately.
So as parents are making their decisions about getting vaccines and getting their shots, and they're going to be talking to their pediatricians, just anything that they should be asking. Again, and I want you to try to reach those people who've been hesitant, not about all shots, but this particular shot. Is there anything that you can help put their fears at ease?
Yeah, I'd say like actually the fact that it took significantly longer for the 6-month to 5-year vaccine to become available in the other age groups is kind of a sign that it's working. The vaccine developers very specifically used the lowest amount of the vaccine in their initial trials, and what they found is that it wasn't enough to stimulate the immune system against a response. And what I have seen, at least anecdotally, and I think I've read a similar reports, is that our side effects in children are significantly lower than what we see in these adults receiving the vaccines. I think a big part of that is the vaccine developers being very cautious with the dose they provide to kids. Because again, when we're talking about young people, providing those vaccine components, we need to be very, very cautious to the safety and efficacy of the vaccines. And I think that everything that the vaccine developers have done, it tells me that it's safe and it's effective.
Dr. Johnson, how are we doing over there? Do we need to take a little moment?
We're having a moment.
That's okay.
We're having a moment. It's okay.
Great.
That's okay. You just take your time, okay? It's a big day.
Ready?
You're doing the right thing, and this is a really big day. So if you need to take a few moments, that's okay. We can just wait a bit. Isabella, how'd you do? You're good. You feel good so far? You're a few minutes in. You're good? Okay, we're going to keep checking back in. Dr. Johnson, I'll get back with you here in just a few moments, see how the kiddos are doing. But I do want to get to a community question that we have. Julie says that she's been anxiously waiting to get her 3-year-old vaccinated and expected it to happen soon after the FDA approved shots for 5 to 11 back in November. This is an age group that seemed to take a little bit longer. Can you explain that?
Yeah, and that's where I go back to what I was kind of commenting on before, which is that there was some early trials with a lower dose of the vaccine presented to children, and what they found is it just wasn't effective enough. And so again, like when we are providing vaccines to our youngest patients, making sure that we provide the lowest dose possible, a safe dose, but then also one that's effective.
I'm going to stop you right there. You guys okay? Yeah. It's okay. You don't have to, no pressure from us, guys.
It's okay.
Whatever, the shots.
I know.
Children don't always love shots.
I'm getting ready for this in 2 days. So on Wednesday, I take my twin 3-year-old girls to get their
Okay, so you know, you're having the prep talk. Okay, we're just, there we go. All done. It's all good. We're going to give you a round of applause. And it's over.
We are so proud of you. Good job.
Way to go, Isabella. That's Isabella. Right?
That's Sophia.
Sophia, way to go, Sophia.
How'd you do, Mom?
Way to go, Isabella. I meant that you too. Both of you.
You did take it in stride.
Spider-Man.
All right, we're going to get to our COVID count because there's Dr. Stites. You heard him right there.
I'm right here.
Okay, our numbers are going up, so we want to bring you in today to talk about the COVID count right now, and then I want you to kind of dive into the numbers and why we're seeing this surge.
First of all, I'm not a good imposter to Hawkeye. I just have to call it out that I'm in his nest, and Hawkeye, I'm going to try not to mess up your nest today. Let's take a look at those COVID numbers. because they're up. 36 active, 4 in the ICU, 1 ventilator, 10 are recovering. Total of 46. That's one of the higher totals we've had in quite a while, since last February and March. You know, remember we got down to like 3 or 4 patients in the hospital, 7 or 8 if you include the recovering. Today we're at 46. We're starting to trend up. If we look across the country, we can see some of the information that's coming out in the New York Times. It's free and open to the public around what's happening. Let's first of all take a look at the heat map. We'll look at the total number of rapid cases. All right. So these are the different waves. This goes back to the very beginning of the pandemic, and you can see where the first wave really hit, and then another wave, and then there was the Omicron wave with a really high spike. The number of cases is rising. Remember, though, that we don't have the same public testing as we had before. So much of the testing is at home, so much of this. But these are the actual reported cases. The numbers are reportedly probably 4 to 8 times higher than that across the country. And so we may actually have a much larger spike of new cases than we are actually able to measure, because public health-wise, we're not doing it. If you look at this next one, this breaks out the rates over the last few months as opposed to the entire length of the pandemic. You can see the slow rise, which is attributed from going from the original Omicron variant. Things kind of got better. Then we went to BA2, then BA2.1, 2.1, now BA4, now BA5, slow incremental increases. Now, what we don't have to worry so much about reporting on that last graph, don't flip on it yet. Look down at the bottom of it. There are some other graphs that are shown, and it talks about there's a total number, then there's hospitalization, and then there's deaths. And we're going to explore hospitalization and deaths more now. Let's go to the next one. These are the hot spots across the United States. And you can see this map, which was about 2 or 3 months ago, looked really pale in nature. This is the combination of where you have a vulnerable population and increasing case counts across the United States. This map is beginning to approach a much more orange type of color. So it's getting darker. It's clearly showing increased intensity, lots more cases. The next map, though, shows the number of hospitalizations, still trending and lagging way behind. Remember before when we looked at hospitalizations, it would break out in those really dark colors. Back in one of the variants, I think it was the Alpha variant in Missouri, it started kind of around Springfield and went along the interstate highways. And then there was the Delta variant, then the Omicron variant. This map of hospitalizations got a lot worse. So we're still lagging behind, which is good news, Jess. Hospitalizations haven't caught up. But the BA5 variant is just really penetrating into the population, and we are seeing some rises in our case counts. So we know that the Wyandotte County, for example, Johnson County, Jackson County, all went into the red zone, suggesting that you go back into masking in public spaces and when you go indoors again. No mandates have been reestablished. I think we're going to try and see how it goes. But if we have to watch most carefully is the number of hospitalizations. Because at this point in the pandemic, I think what we're really saying is this. We can cope with what we have because we have so many more people who are vaccinated. They tend not to get sick. They tend not to die. And there's Paxlovid and other therapies available. But if we start filling up and then we can't take care of all patients in our hospital because we have so many COVID patients, that's where we will really need more help from the public, Jess.
So, true or not, this is more of a cause for caution, not alarm.
I think it is a cause for caution, and I think if you have any concerns about your own health or being in public, it may be time to start masking up if you're going to go indoors. Not that we should have mask mandates again, but if you want to help try to prevent the spread of COVID during what's clearly another wave now, you're going to have to think about masking on. When I go to the grocery store now, I got to put a mask back on. I haven't changed my behaviors that much yet, but it's something we have to be cognizant of, especially if hospitalizations continue to trend up, and they're already up. If they continue to trend up, then we're going to have to be a little more thoughtful about our response.
It is interesting to start watching the people around you when you start going out into public places. When you go to the grocery store, yesterday I saw somebody lining the inside of the cart with the newspaper from the ads, and I remember back in the day when people were that concerned and that worried, but you're saying we are far from that.
I don't think we need to line that. I think we've clearly established this is a respirable virus, that if you do that and wash your hands, you should be fine. The other is if you can mask and wash your hands, make sure you're vaccinated. Again, if you look at the risks of hospitalization, death, people who are both vaccinated and boosted, they just don't come in the hospital and die unless they have really severe underlying disease. And by that I mean you're a transplant patient with rejection, you're advanced chemotherapy for your cancer treatment, things of that nature. But in general, folks who are fully vaccinated, which nowadays should mean boosted as well. If you're vaccinated and boosted, you're going to be well protected against severe hospitalization and death. If you do start to get Omicron, or if you start to get COVID, then talk to your physician about going on Paxlovid.
A couple things I wanted to ask you about. CDC reporting, and I just want to hear your thoughts on this. Vaccine protection waned this spring, but boosters helped.
Yeah, that's not new news, right? That's
Right.
what's true with influenza. It's true with lots of different vaccinations. It's been true with the COVID vaccination. I do think it's important, as I said, the real story is not only are you vaccinated, but are you vaccinated and boosted? A lot of Americans are now vaccinated. Not as many are vaccinated and boosted. We are seeing a lot of Americans who have had COVID. It's estimated 65 to 70% of Americans have now had COVID. If that's true, the problem we have to recognize is how long has it been since you've had COVID, because we know that native immunity also begins to wane after 3 or 4 months.
All right, I'll check back with you. I know we've only have you for a few more moments, so stick around and we'll get some final thoughts from you here in just a moment. But I do want to get back with our guests because we are talking about vaccines for all. I mean, now that kids under 5 are able to get vaccinated, and do you anticipate a busy clinic the next month or so?
Yeah, I think we've had a steady number of children and families that have come in and get vaccinated. I think you've had the early adopters that when the announcement came that vaccines were available in children 6 months to 5 years, we had a lot of people schedule. I think those that had already been routinely scheduled for appointments, we've had kind of a mixed, we've had mixed results with the number of children that are vaccinated. But yeah, I think I'm overall pretty promised. I think, again, unfortunately, it takes numbers rising a little bit for people to understand the risk that COVID still poses to the general population. So I've been cautiously optimistic with our vaccination efforts.
So what does this mean? Because Dr. Johnson, you and I were talking yesterday, and you said that your spouse had taken Sophia to get her shot, and they were out.
Yeah, so our clinic, our pediatrician's office, they have been running out. They have those clinics where Sign Up Genius comes out, and within minutes of me getting the text for Sign Up Genius, it's full. I mean, it's literally already full when I get the text message to sign up.
Does that mean it's full? Does that mean it's lack of supply, or does that mean that people are getting their vaccines? Does that show some good news?
Yeah, I think it's a good combination of other things, but I think it is a good sign that it's specifically around our community. There are large groups that are very interested and motivated to get vaccines, and it is really reassuring. And
I want to ask you about the vaccine and the dosage. For adults, it's different, obviously, but 2 companies, Pfizer and Moderna, went different ways in deciding how much antigen to put in their vaccine for babies, toddlers, and preschool age kids. Talk to us a little bit about what decisions parents have to make with that, or something if they're reading this type of information online, help them kind of decipher what that means.
So part of it's how vaccines are developed and approved, and how the vaccine companies decide to study their efficacy guides, like ultimately how the schedule is when the vaccine is ultimately approved. And Pfizer, with their early studies with lower doses of antigen that weren't successful, decided to move forward with the 3-dose series. And Moderna stayed with their 2-dose series. And
I think we have that schedule. Can we put that up? The shot schedule, while you're talking through that, just so people can understand. And
I will say, and I think it's been very difficult for the public, it's very difficult for healthcare providers to adapt to the changing recommendations around COVID vaccine, when to get boosted, like what the timeline was. And I will say that the Pfizer vaccine, I think, has been less preferred in this population because it is more shots, but there is the possibility that that would go against the need for a booster for Moderna later on. So the fact that children are getting 3 doses right now for Pfizer, there's the opportunity that the vaccine schedule will be such in so many months that you'll get 3 for Moderna or for Pfizer.
Dr. Seitz, I know you have to check out and go be with patients today, but I just want to give you a final thought, if you don't mind, and just your message to parents as they head out to get their kids vaccinated and ready for school.
You know, I thought you said it perfectly. You kids wear your bicycle helmet, they wear a seat belt, they have sure they've got all their other vaccinations. The reality is the pandemic hasn't gone away. It's endemic, and we're going to deal with it from time to time, just as we are now, as we're at the beginning of this next wave, and we're starting to see hospitalizations rise. So appreciate those words that you had, because I think it's dead on right. What we do now is really that ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to prevent a lot of hospitalizations. We're trying to prevent the inflammatory disease in children. We're trying to do things, and we know that the vaccinations are safe, they're effective, and they are the best way forward to help us cope, not necessarily end, but to continue to cope with this pandemic and make sure that we can keep ourselves and keep everyone safe. So thanks a lot, Jasmine.
You bet. We'll see
be
you
back on Wednesday.
Wednesday for open
Yes, ma'am.
mics. See you then. All right. Just back with our guests, Dr. Smith and Dr. Johnson as well. Just how hopeful, you mentioned hopeful, are you that this will really affect things come fall? Certainly bringing down anxiety for parents. We'll talk about that. But what do we think that'll do, and how do we think that might affect the numbers?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, with the impact of Omicron in children, specifically young children, I think the hope is that having the vaccine not just available but widely taken by that population will be able to control the risk of transmission within children. And I think the other thing to always consider is as we have high numbers in children, in relatively healthy adults, that promotes community spread for those people in our community that are pretty vulnerable.
Well, and think of the older kids that are in school and then bringing it back home to school, and now that we're not masking. Just your take on that, Dr. Johnson, your concerns?
Yeah, I think a practical standpoint is having a preschooler who will also be a kindergartner. When there's COVID in the classroom, her classroom gets shut down. And so we've got daycares that shut down classrooms, or kids get sent home because they need to quarantine because they've been exposed to another kid or teacher in the classroom in preschool, which then, as a parent, causes a lot of stress because you have a kiddo at home that would normally be at preschool. And so I think there are some practical pieces that impact most of our lives as working parents that, one, we get to support and take care of our children and keep them safe with the vaccination, but also, two, then when the classroom gets shut down, they get some protection because they're vaccinated. And so I'm kind of a practical person that way, that having my kiddos in their school where they're supposed to be learning and growing is where I want them ultimately to be. And so that's one more plug for the vaccine, is that, especially for the kiddos that are 5 and under in preschool still, the impact of classrooms being shut down is real. And we will see how this looks when our big kids get back to elementary and middle school, and how school districts handle a positive or a cluster of positive, how that impacts a school being masked or not masked, or kids being sent home, and kind of continuing Groundhog Day from 2020 and 2021.
Absolutely. 3 brave kiddos, though, right behind you. 7, 5, and 9 right there. I'm just going to have you, they're not mic'd up, but I want to find out how they're doing. You feeling good? Can you give me the thumbs up meter up? Oh, that's straight up.
Sophia, how are you?
Sophia, how's it going?
Thumbs up?
Oh, I got a little bit. Oh, she's waffling. And Ian, you're waiting.
You're waiting.
You're waiting. But you got to earn that donut, pal, okay? No, you don't care about the donut. I get it. I totally get that. Okay, so I want to talk about some other vaccines that parents need to be keeping in mind, and then I want to talk with you, Dr. Johnson, about just how we can get kids mentally ready to get back to the classrooms. But what kind of checklist? Let's run it through. What do parents need to make sure they're doing as they get kids ready for school?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, understanding that all vaccines are important, and we, at least within our clinics, are very busy with pre-matriculation or pre-enrollment physicals, as well as sports physicals. And so for younger children who are entering school, making sure they're up to date on their MMR and varicella, their Tdaps, and other childhood immunizations for our adolescents that are getting ready for their fall sports seasons, making sure that they are up to date on their meningitis vaccines, their HPV, and of course their COVID.
All right, we've got some great questions coming in, but I do want to ask you, Dr. Johnson, is it too soon to start planning, getting your kids ready when it comes to better diets and better sleep and just getting them just kind of mentally set. Are we too soon or is it never too soon?
It is never too soon. I think June was too soon, but we're now at the end of July. And I know for the Kansas side, we've got school districts starting back August 11th, I think August 14th, August 16th. And so we've got less than a month for some schools that will be back in session. So now is a good time to slowly start moving that bedtime from, 10:30, 11 p.m. or whatever it may be. Each week moving it up earlier, 10, 15 minutes. So when August 11th, 15th hits, your kids are adjusted to going to bed much earlier. Time to start talking about back to school, getting supplies ready, just to have everything ready. I think going shopping helps kids understand this is real. School is coming back. It is
Yes.
happening. So getting them involved in the process, getting them involved in what they're looking forward to this school year. What are some things they want to learn and accomplish and grow? There's still time for some summer vacations or summer getaways. So maybe make some plans to take the weekend and go to Omaha or go somewhere somewhat local or just stay local and explore Kansas City more. So having a mixture of some fun things, but also for some kids, the grim reality, school is starting back in a matter of weeks. But my kids are excited, right, for school?
Oh yeah, school over shots. They'll take it anytime. Because we were talking, and you're going to be coming back here in a few weeks to talk about anxiety as kids head back to school. We know we ended last school year just in an unfathomable state for our entire country. So it'll be nice to have you with some tips on how we can do that. But so thank you for doing that. Do we have any reporter questions on the line? I am going to just jump in with some community ones. If kids get vaccinated for the first dose of older vaccines, is it safe to get the second dose of the new vaccine in the end of the year? Is it safe to mix, I guess is what this viewer is asking. Safe to mix vaccines for kids?
I understand that it is.
Okay.
If I understand it correct, with the Pfizer vaccine, it is a 3-dose schedule regardless of which vaccines you receive. I think in general, as I had mentioned, these vaccine recommendations, the schedules, the combination of vaccines is changing pretty rapidly. So consulting your healthcare provider for the most up-to-date recommendations is really important.
Leah wants to know if you suggest children wearing a mask in school. And maybe I'll start with you, Dr. Johnson. Just what is the thought process behind that as far as how it helps them mentally and anxiety-wise?
I think it's going to depend. If you have a kiddo that has health issues, of course, keep them safe. If you have a kid that's anxious about getting COVID or any other illness, that's a fine line to walk of how much of a mask may help to increase anxiety versus decrease some of that anxiety. If you have a household in which there's some compromised people, I think that, yes, by all means, keep a mask on. I think keeping the mask on during the school year may actually help your child mitigate if there is positive in the classroom with not getting sent home because they were actually protected from it. So I know for my youngest kiddo, if she wears a mask in her classroom and there's a positive, she's got a PPE on so she won't get sent home with wearing a mask. So there's a couple of options to weigh on whether the motivations for why to mask or not to mask for your family.
And there's other illnesses that are out there, of course, but I think wearing a mask gives kids a sense of control too, that they have control over their own health and the germs they spread or take in. Brian wants to know, how long after a 12 to 16-year-old takes a COVID booster should they wait before getting their scheduled school vaccines, Dr. Smith?
There shouldn't be any need to space out the vaccines because, again, they act presenting different antigens, and there's a shared system to build an immune response. You should be able to get them together or with any spacing.
Just a couple other questions. Melissa's asking, what about being 7 months from a booster, 7 months out? I don't know, she's asking, are you still protected? And maybe are boosters necessary for all? What is a booster recommendation for all? Let's just go there.
Yeah, I think it's great. And again, like, it is changing so rapidly. And I would not be surprised in talking to some of the people that are on the American Committee for Immunization Practices, ACIP, and work for the CDC. There is the suggestion that in not too long there'll be the recommendation for seasonal COVID vaccines, and that could even come with the flu vaccine in September and October. Again, we talk about history, but it has been a very short period of time that we've been navigating the pandemic, and saw the rapid rise of these vaccines, which are incredibly effective and safe. But I think right now, follow the booster recommendations and realize that there'll probably be distinct recommendations coming in the next few months.
Connie wants to know, what is your guidance if you are immunocompromised and have been fully vaccinated and boosted, but your last booster was back in January? So at 7 months post last booster, she's very concerned about her immunity. When will another booster be available for people who are immunocompromised?
Yeah, and I can't say for certain, and I don't think anyone can say for certain, and a lot of it has to do with these conversations in the advisory level for these committees. But I will say, in general, when we think about that time out, it's not absolute. So I mean, like the committee on immunization practices has been very careful to try to maximize immunity at all of it ability. And so at 6 months after completion of initial series, like you still have significant immunity, but it'll slowly start to wane. So even someone that's immunocompromised at 7 months after a booster likely has immune protection, but it may wane over time. So again, like follow those recommendations as they come out. And I suspect that really within the next month or two, there'll be some greater guidance on possible seasonal COVID vaccines or further details on second and third boosters.
Carrie has a question. I'm not against getting my kids vaccinated, but I am also unaware of significant side effects from kids getting COVID. Could you go into some of the pros and cons and risk reward of getting kids vaccinated versus the risk of them possibly getting COVID?
Yeah, and I think that's important, and I appreciated that Dr. Stites talked about the multi-system inflammatory disease that we see with COVID. It's been something that we've only seen in young people and has been very serious and led to a number of hospitalizations and serious health complications. I know there's been concern in the communities, concern among some of my patients about myocarditis or inflammation of the heart. And what the studies have shown is that the risk of myocarditis or inflammation of the heart from COVID disease is about 100 times what it is from the vaccine. We still see a number of sick children that end up in the hospitalizations, on ventilators, needing different types of respiratory support. So again, like the risk of COVID is there. It is significant, and it isn't anything to ignore. But I think again there is concern out there amongst parents, amongst young people about getting the vaccine. And so I think like I just encourage everyone at the very least to have a conversation with their family doctor, with their pediatrician, because this is a tough decision. We understand how challenging it is to navigate all the information that we have.
Well, and I've always said I still have friends who have not, maybe just a few, but haven't vaccinated their children yet. And like I've always said, they love their kids just the same way I do. They just came, they're concerned about their kids in a different way. So I want you to take off your doctor hat, Dr. Johnson, and put your mom hat on, and just maybe talk to folks out there again on the fence about that being a true concern. Yeah. The risk reward.
Yeah.
What questions did you ask yourself?
And I think that we have to take a step back and kind of breathe. And I know people get really heated about this, and at the underlying kind of the foundation of this is our kids' safety. And so when we broach it that way, we can kind of maybe sit back and relax a little bit and think about what can I do to keep them safe. I think, as Dr. Smith said, looking at CDC's information, looking at kind of vetted scientific information. I know a lot of people use social media to kind of get information, but I would rather you go and look at vetted scientific material to make that decision versus something that someone put on the internet, which could be right or could be wrong, but I'd rather it be peer reviewed and maybe double-blind studies been done on to make sure the information is correct. So looking at trusted information from trusted resources to help make decisions, talking to your family practice physician, talking to your pediatrician, talking to important people around you to kind of weigh out the pros and cons and the risk rewards of getting the vaccine. But making a really thoughtful decision about it based on all the evidence that you can find that's, again, vetted in science. And then talking to your kids. It's amazing. Our kids have a lot of thoughts and ideas about the world, some of which is great, some of which we can't go on. But talking to your kids and getting their sense, I think for these middle school kids, high school kids, they have an opinion about it. And want to voice that opinion and maybe have some say so in their healthcare. And so having a discussion on what they think. If you're not on the fence, but your kiddo is on the fence, I can relate to that. Having discussion about what the vaccine is, and for many kids, it's not the vaccine; it's getting a shot. It could be saline in the vial; it wouldn't matter. It's actually getting a shot, and so doing things to help calm anxieties around actually getting the shot. So, have a seat, guys. Making sure that you've got a conversation going, that maybe there is a reward to getting the shot, that there are donuts or a small $2 thing that they can have because they were brave. And it takes bravery to get a shot. I know many adults that don't get a shot very well. And so having something there to help motivate them and let them know it is okay.
Just lastly, though, I love you talking about the parents, because the last thing we want is there's no wrong question, and we don't want parents to fear not asking questions or feel ashamed that they haven't gotten their kids. If it's taken them a year to get here, we welcome them, correct? Always. How are your kiddos doing?
They are doing great. The girls have rocked out this vaccine. My he's working at it. We're going to get him there because he's got to get protected too. School starts, and again, my goal is to have them boosted and safe, so if there is positivity in their room, they've got a layer of protection from getting sick.
All right, it's well past their 15 minutes, so you feel confident, pediatric nurses waiting in the wings, that they're good to go. Okay, hang tight there, kiddos, just a few more minutes. Your donut is getting closer by the minute. Let's get some final thoughts. Dr. Smith, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think, again, I encourage everyone to get vaccinated against COVID. Getting in to see your physician for your routine check. And I think, again, especially with the heat coming, making sure that you stay safe, stay hydrated, and stay well.
Dr. Johnson.
So you guys got to see my kids in the vaccine. It's not a perfect, kids don't sit and just kind of take the shot all the time, and our nurses can probably speak how that process goes. But that's not going to be the measure of success if they did or didn't get it. It's going to be, we're going to try this again and get that vaccine and keep them safe. Make sure you have conversations with your kids about getting their well-child checks, because I think kids get nervous around that. So having conversations about what will happen and what we're going to do, getting your kids, or at least getting the conversation going that school will be starting soon, and kind of talking about any kind of worries or fears they may have or what they're looking forward to. Some last minute to do things on the checklist for summer fun to make sure that kids go back to school feeling as ready as they can be, is how I'll phrase that, as ready as they can be.
Very well said. Great advice. So Isabella, Sophia, Ian, thank you. We loved your background noise today. You're keeping it real. We get it. We know. We're all a little squirmish, so that's okay. You did really great. We appreciate you very much. When will they be back for their booster? When will Sophia need her booster?
3
weeks from today.
3 weeks from today, she'll get another shot.
And then 8 weeks from the second dose, she'll
can
get
get boosted.
her.
Then she'll get okay, sounds good. All right. Thank you all so much for being with us today. Tomorrow, we are going to look back at why respiratory therapists have had some of the toughest jobs in the medical field during this pandemic. It is a special encore presentation of the Morning Medical Update. So please tune in, and we'll see you back here live on Wednesday for Open Mics with Dr. Stites. These folks aren't health system employees just yet, anyway. I'm Jessica Lovell. Wednesday on Open Mics, join Dr. Steve Stites as he talks to high schoolers getting a jump start on their medical careers. What's behind this first of its kind program here that already has a waiting list?
Subscribe to our Morning Medical Update and Open Mics with Dr. Stites podcasts. Now, everywhere podcasts are available.